I'm about to do what, as a marketing consultant for far too many years, about 3 decades actually, I've always told not to do, which is tell the client what it is we're going to do before we give them the final result. I'm going to leak an awful lot of work in progress because I'd love your opinion on it, to be honest. This is very much part of one of the key drivers to the IO strategy. Just to remind ourselves, I think Ben's spoken about it, this is our new vision. It's about putting osteopathy at the heart of the nation, osteopathy for the health of the nation. We are going to go mainstream. This vision has been bought into by all our stakeholder organizations in osteopathy in the UK, by the colleges, by the postgraduate colleges, by NCORE and by GEOSC. So we are all going for this. Ben explained earlier today, this is a generational goal. We're not going to get there in the next 2 or 3 years. It's taken us 106 years so far to get to where we've got to. It's probably going to take us another 10 or so to get anywhere close to this, but we're going to start now. That's the intention. This is the graphical depiction of the sort of 3-sided strategy that we follow. It's about recognition, because actually, unless we have recognition, then who's going to buy us? It's about growth, because actually, without the profession being a growing and thriving profession, which has been the theme for this year's convention, there aren't going to be enough of us to satisfy the demand to be at the heart of UK health. And we also want much broader access. Most of our community work in private practice at the moment. Very few on the National Health Service, but we have got, again, to try and find other ways and means in which the broad population can actually access an osteopath, because we are good for them, aren't we? Yeah. Yo, good. Just one quick slide on kind of the background to this. In 1993, we got the Osteopaths Act, so we got regulation. GEOSC came along about 5 years later. At the moment, this is what, 26 years on, osteopaths treat around 1 million adults a year. Only about 5 million have ever been to an osteopath. These numbers, again, we spoke about this morning, in fact, and yesterday too. Certainly with, by the way, a huge welcome, by the way, to the University College and the European School students who are with us today. Welcome. This is as much for you as it is about for the rest of us. Word of mouth, the reach of osteopathy is not yet good enough, and which is really weird, basically for a health service that is so good. NCORE proms keep showing over and over again in the UK, across Europe, that actually patient satisfaction is incredibly high. It's over 90%. Very few services in any walk of life get that high a rating. So why aren't we better known? Why aren't we more used? That's the big question. So, and I know that word of mouth is the best marketing, except that, as we can see, word of mouth runs out. 5 million is not the 60-odd million adults there are in the UK. So why aren't we getting there? That's our big challenge. And one of the things that we have been talking particularly to our European colleagues about, because we were one of the first, in fact, possibly the first in Europe to get regulation. But I would actually argue that recognition of osteopathy is actually far higher in other countries without regulation. Because the name of the game isn't just about having a law, statutory regulation, a set of rules. It's actually to get recognized by the population as being at the heart of their nation's health. I would actually argue that the Germans currently are more successful than we are, perhaps even the Belgians. Apparently I think something like 1 in 10 Belgians, i.e. 10% every year, go to an osteopath. They don't yet have regulation. So, we have to break out of this mindset that says we've got regulation, the world owes us a living. We've got to try harder. We've actually got to push through for genuine recognition. And what we're trying to do here with this project that we're calling Brand Osteopath, my apologies, I'm not an osteopath, I'd love to be. I'm a bloody marketeer. My job is to try to understand where osteopathy can sit in the panoply of the United Kingdom and actually make this profession become even better recognized, become even more valuable. So that's my job as a marketeer. I'd like to think I look at markets in the same way as you guys look at patients. Look at the overall picture, look at what needs resolution, look at how you can tweak it. And I hope what we're talking about today gives you some sense of how we're trying to approach that. So what we're trying to do on the Brand Osteopath project is to make a brand out of the word osteopath. In the same way that the word doctor is a brand, Coca-Cola is a brand. You know, it's something that's instantly recognizable, has an instant connotation, basically instantly means that at the next party you go to, you're not going to have to explain to the person you just met what an osteopath does. In fact, I now meet so many more osteopaths who say, I don't say I'm an osteopath anymore because I'm bored of trying to explain it. You know, I'd like osteopath to mean exactly the same as doctor or nurse in terms of instant recognition. I know what an osteopath can do for me. And that's why we're calling it brand osteopath. It's not brand osteopathy, because you guys can't agree on what osteopathy is, and I'm not going to start. Okay? I am going to try and make you individually and all of us as individuals, as a community of osteopaths, into that brand which is instantly recognizable. And this is the simple principle that we're trying to get around. And this applies both for what we're trying to do about the NHS and also what we're trying to do with a public perception which is around brand osteopath, which is if we want more recognition, we need to engage more. And if we engage more, we get more understanding drives recognition, and you get a virtuous circle. So that's what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to kickstart this virtuous circle of going out to talk to people, getting their understanding, the understanding builds more activity, and so on. And it will get better and better. That is, by the way, why we've put so much effort into our National Health Service engagement policies, engagement actions. It's not because everyone in this audience is going to be offered a paycheck by the NHS anytime soon. That ain't going to happen. They can't afford us. And actually, a lot of us don't want to work in the NHS, and that's absolutely fine. But unless people working inside the service can work with enough of us to understand what we collectively do, they're not going to accept us. It is not the GP's fault that they won't refer to osteopaths. It's our fault for feigning up to now to explain. So let's not talk about fault, but that's the way it goes. It's our task to explain. So what we did on the Brand Osteopath, we have two main phases. The first is so far completed, and that's the research phase. We spent around just over £30,000 on both qualitative and quantitative research to try and understand consumer motivation, because what we want to do is create a brand for the word osteopath that is not about your training, your techniques, how you do what you do, because I'm terribly sorry, but as far as we can make out, patients ain't interested. They don't want to know what's inside the box. They just want to know the box works. And I'm sorry for describing it as a box. That's being very rude. But they want to know what they get from going to an osteopath. They don't need to know what's, your years, decades of training and dedication and so on and so forth that it takes to deploy. That isn't what interests them. They just want to know what they get out of it. So the research was dedicated to trying to find out from consumers what they say about us, what they think about us, not in terms of perhaps the upfront message of pain relief, because pain is obviously there for most of our patients, dare I say. But what we're trying to reach through to is what you get as a result of that pain not being there anymore. So it's trying to describe the benefit of an osteopath in terms of improved function, which I know is very much the goal that you're going for. But we're trying to get the consumers to help describe that to us so we can actually use it to describe back to them what osteopaths do and what osteopaths are. Does that sound reasonable? Does it sound logical so far? Yeah? Oh, good. Right. There are a lot of words of the following slides because I have, again, broken all the presentation rules. I'm showing you the presentation slides used by the research company to us in all its glory. I will extract from the mass of words that you will see over the next half an hour or so the key points. By the way, we will make all these slides available to you so you can actually spend the time afterwards going through word by word and by all means, and please do actually write to me if you have any questions. So I'm going to take you through what I feel to be the most relevant key results slides of the research that we did. Please don't bother reading all the words. Some of them are so small you can't read them anyway. So, Brand Osteopath Project, overall mission, to identify how and develop ways in which osteopathic practice can best be positioned and promoted to the public and healthcare community. That's what we're trying to do in order to raise awareness of the benefits of osteopathic care. Okay? This is the first phase. So what we did first was we went out and did focus groups. Political parties can do it, so can we. So we held a total of 8 groups with both osteopathic users, i.e. current patients, and non-users, gender split, north and south, to start to build an idea of what consumer motivation understanding is of the word osteopath, generally what they feel about manual therapies, and actually where we sit against other manual therapists, particularly chiropractors and physiotherapists. You with me so far? Okay. And these are the contextual insights. By the way, these guys were not just encouraged to come into groups and discuss for typically about 2 or 3 hours what they felt about osteopathy and care and paying for care. We also got them to fill in the diary in terms of their impressions and motivations. Just in terms of background, these are some of the common themes that came across all the groups, both users and non-users. Again, by all means read the words in the middle, but the important sides of life are around words and sentiments and themes like pride, protection, support, celebration, quality time, spending together. That's kind of some of the key driver words around life that all our participants in the research were talking about. Friends and family are obviously highly valued as part of that, so there is that sense of family belonging. Another key theme, making the most of and enjoying life, about keeping fit, holidays, me time, cultural pursuits, challenges, self-achievement. A lot of that came out in terms of motivators for the members of the public when thinking about health and well-being. Osteopath, and this is the set from current patients. So before and after, there was a sense of before and after coming to an osteopath. A river giving life to a twisted mess. Isn't that wonderful? Peace, tranquility, flexibility, balance, gentlemanly. I mean, it's amazing the difference in language used between these 3 experiences of 3 different types of manual therapists. So, to me, this kind of underlines and benefits and results for overall health, not just pain relief. So, there's a perception that from current patients that osteopaths really are good for life. Isn't that great? Keep calm, you're in good hands. This is from non-users of osteopathy. And this is the challenge we've got. Older people, alternative, nervous, osteoporosis, because there's the phrase osteo in there, bones, unqualified, overlap with chiropractic, clinical, generic manual therapy. So there's a way to go if we're going to make these people into the previous people. Again, collages, generated by the participants themselves. So Brand Osteopath needs to address problems of differentiation as well as lack of perceived relevance and medical standing. Note, lack of perceived relevance and medical standing. Again, going back to current patients, my osteopath made me or gave me, so this is a word cloud. Bigger words, relaxed, better, able to, whole variety of functional releases. Improved health, mental and middle, confidence, reassurance, hope, a plan, and so on and so forth. So, these are all reported by research participants and potential contenders. And these are the things that we then took forward into quantitative research. So we were using the qualitative groups, discussion groups, 8 of them with small numbers in each of the groups to try and discuss, to pull out sentiments, feelings, a general descriptor about the variety of issues, from feelings about life, feelings about health, feelings about therapists and therapy in general. Is this interesting? Has anyone got any questions so far? No? Okay, let's move on. So this is from the first phase of the research. The conclusions from this qualitative phase using focus groups was that the opportunity is an osteopath helps you in different ways via diagnosis, treatment, and advice. There are issues around understanding and getting to the crux of the problem, not issues. Those are the benefits. You understand, you get to the crux of the problem. You are skilled at using your hands. You sort a patient out. You provide support and guidance for promoting a future healthy life. So, in fact, Susan and I sat in on one of the groups in Manchester, in fact, a couple of groups in Manchester, of both users and non-users. The thing that really spoke to me was during the course of the couple of hours that we had this particular group, in fact, the group of non-users. Non-users in this case were actually professional women, I think typically from about 25 to about 40. I think half of them were children, the other half were young professionals, didn't yet have kids. They were non-users. Initially, the discussion was around, what is osteopathy? Are they trained? Are they safe? Are they, all the sort of standard questions from non-users. Once the researcher had explained some of the basic stuff about osteopathy, we are well trained, we are well regulated, we have 96% satisfaction from acceptance from patients and so on and so forth. The switch was palpable. The whole of the group managed to talk themselves into, I must try one, by the end of that session. So switching is entirely possible, both from that subjective experience that Susan and I had within that group, and actually from all the rest of the findings so far.
May I comment? It was very striking. One woman said, well, if that's available, then I want to have some. And I want my family to have some as well, my mother, and come to think of it, my husband too. It was very impressive.
So, great thing with the qual, this is discussion groups which allow us to spend a good couple of hours going into motivations, reasons, why people want to do things, as to how many of them want to do things, and we're getting some very good indicators. So this set of results was then fed to a quantitative phase. In the quant phase, we basically wanted to start to find out how many of the British population think this way. We now know that some of them do, so the quant exercise was to try and find out how many, to actually try to give us a clear indicator as to what size of opportunity it is that we're going for. Yeah? Does that make sense? Methodology basically is that we used an online survey tool and a mix of techniques in doing so. But I'm just going to focus here on some of the key outcome results. Awareness, usage, and consideration. So we asked their awareness out of the whole research group, how aware are you of physiotherapy, chiropractic, osteopathy? Okay, so not surprisingly, when we kind of guessed this, physiotherapy is first, 84%, chiropractic next, 75%, osteopathy is 67%. I have no idea why we are lower, but we are lower, and we kind of guessed we were lower. Chiropractors are much better at marketing, much better at business, all the things that we think about chiropractic, whether it's true or not, that's the end result so far in Britain. Who's ever used? Just under 40% physiotherapists, about 1 in 7 chiropractors, and again, the same number as we were kind of guessing, about 10%, 9 or 10%, has ever used an osteopath. Used in the last 2 years, that 9% dips down to 5%, 7% for chiropractic, 22% for physiotherapy. This is the fun one. Would consider using. So this question was asked of current non-users of that particular therapist or therapy. So 49% for physiotherapy, 31% for chiropractor, 21% for osteopathy. So 1 in 5 of the non-user population in Britain would consider using an osteopath. 1 in 5 of the British population is about 10 million people. The opportunity is huge, given that at the moment, it's taken us 160 years only to reach another 5 million. All right, so there's a potential of a 10 million switch. So having asked them about initially, are you aware, have you ever used, would you consider using? We then gave them, in fact, what the researchers called an anchor point description. An anchor point description, we basically built a paragraph description around osteopathy, which touched a lot of the key points around motivation to use an osteopath. The anchor point description is fairly anodyne, to be honest. Osteopaths are highly trained healthcare professionals who are experts in the musculoskeletal system, muscles, joints, and associated tissues of the body. Osteopaths use a wide variety of gentle hands-on techniques that focus on releasing tension, improving mobility, and optimizing function. I think that's probably a nice site, isn't it? It's the standard stuff that we say. Anyway, so after we tested, are you aware of, have you ever used, would you switch, we gave them this descriptor, and we gave them more substantiating evidence around the descriptor. So stuff from GEOS, stuff from just generally reports on how osteopaths behave. The fantastic thing is that if you apply that anchor point statement well enough, you get a very different result. If you just look at the top one, that 21% turns into 48%. So we are basically capable of not only of accessing another 10 million people, potentially over another 20 million people. Okay? Again, does the logic sound okay to you? The other part of what we did on the quantitative research was, it's called motivated trade-offs. It's basically, it's a technique that I'm sure Dawn is very familiar with as a research technique as well, where we ask individuals to rank, or in fact pick the top one out of 3 statements. But we then rotate the statements, and they're at random. So the list of factors that, I'm going to go through this list of factors that we asked them about were all of these. So there's a whole bunch around qualifications and credentials, there's a bunch around ease of access, there's a bunch about what going to an osteopath involves, what it and who it's used for, and what it does. So there were 22 motivators that we tested and got them to rank in groups of 3. Top rank out of 3. Next question, randomly cycled, another group of 3, pick your top out of those 3. And sometimes, yes, what you picked at the top, you wouldn't pick the next time around because something else. So that's the technique used to try to understand a hierarchy of motivation. Yeah? Again, does that make sense? Is that understandable? And what we ended up with is trade-off technique. This is where you really can't read the descriptors. At the very top, yes, of course, can provide. It's interesting, the wordage is can provide freedom of relief from pain and discomfort. So the focus is actually around the freedom aspect, not just the freedom from pain. Then there's a whole bunch of others. Gentle hands-on is important, care and treatment is important, managing the range of healthcare issues is important. A whole bunch of stuff in the middle, using skilled hands-on techniques, clinically trained, registered, and so on and so forth. So you will get a copy of all of this. So there's a range of motivators that went all the way down. By the way, at the very bottom at the moment is a member of the Institute of Osteopathy, 16%. So it is relevant. It's at the bottom of a whole list of other stuff, but actually being a member is good for you. Yeah, okay. Okay. Going to some of these, if you go to qualifications for credentials, clinically trained, registered, and legally regulated healthcare professional is the most important. The phrase 96% of patients express confidence in treatment and advice of their osteopath particularly appeals to those who have school-aged children. So again, we're getting a very good range of ideas about motivators and who they apply to. But we also asked, what are the key influences that will affect your choice to switch to an osteopath? NHS recommendation is very high. GPs is also very high. By the way, just to go back to where we started, this is why we spend so much time talking to the NHS. It's to convert the guard dogs into the influences for us rather than against us. Other healthcare professionals, and lo and behold, Institute of Osteopathy membership is actually seen to be a good thing as well. It's actually much higher this time because it's ranking against other influences. So it's using labels to assist people's understanding of how safe, how good we are. Again, I'm not going to read all of this, but these are the major conclusions of the quant research. Osteopathy lags behind the other major therapy professions. Yes, it does. Paying for healthcare is generally viewed negatively, but actually, there is a market for self-funding. So that's good. Also, 3, 2/3 of patients and almost half of non-users feel very positive about the osteopathic anchor point. That basically says there is a huge opportunity to effect a switch campaign, a sustained switch campaign. 4, the hierarchy of motivators to consider consulting an osteopath, there is a clear consensus on the consumer end benefit of freedom of relief from pain and discomfort. Emphasis on the freedom. 5, the NHS of GPs are the key influencers, but other HCPs and the 2 osteopathic bodies, which are GOSC and the IO, are also secondary influences as well. Okay? Now, if you think about it, you probably knew a lot of this, didn't you? Yeah? Knew a little about it, could guess some of it. I mean, to me, the great thing is that none of this is said by us. This is all said by the researchers. This is what's come out of that first emphasis on the first phase of Brown Osteopath. This is what consumers are telling us about what they're looking for from life, how they feel that we might be able to help, and actually giving us hints about how they would actually tend towards using us rather than another manual therapist in so doing. How much time have I got? Okay. I'm going to spend the next few minutes just talking about the next phase. So now we've got this research. It shows, I think, quite clearly, what does it show quite clearly? That there are good opportunities for us to drive a harder, faster, better recognition of the word osteopath. It's given us hints on how to do that. It actually shows there's huge opportunity to start to influence much larger sections of the population than we have ever, or at least in the last century, been able to do. Those are my key outtakes. Does anyone else have any other outtakes from this? Or any questions before I move on? In that case, a quick sneak peek as to what we're now going to do with this information. We have now commissioned, a branding and PR agency. So this agency, which is they've got their creds in a second, I'll show you how good they are, but they have very good experience in working with health and other brands in forming a proposition that consumers listen to, and then forming campaigns behind it that will actually help us get to the goals we want. Phase 1 is developing a value proposition for osteopath based on insights and research, and then phase 2, developing campaign. We're not talking about phase 2 yet because we haven't got to the value proposition. I'm going to give you some early indicators of where the thinking is going on the strategy. This is the credentials page from AUK. They're an award-winning integrated brand communications agency. They were #1 ad agency winner 2019 with under 40 staff and so on and so forth. They're good. They're great. I mean, we pitched six agencies pitched to us. These were the best by a street. They're young, they're committed, they actually understand what we're trying to go for. Their strategist is one of the best I've ever met. I think they will do a good job for us and with us. These are some of the brands that they use. They've actually broken this up into clinical medical brands, health and well-being brands, and membership not-for-profit brands. So they do a lot with Westfield Health, also with NHS, and so on, a number of brands that you may or may not have heard of. What they will be doing for us is creating a value proposition that is not only meaningful, i.e. appeals to the consumer, but also different. There's no point creating a meaningful brand that's the same as another brand. So we need to create a brand for the word osteopath that talks about a difference or is sold differently, but it will be different. And they will do that with a single creative proposition. I'm not going to repeat this insofar as that's the key outtakes from the research. Some of the key things, however, that they do want to take emphasis on. Osteopaths take time. They also want to focus on advice and guidance that osteopaths give. They also see as very relevant, that we need a strong and relevant brand position, and the issue around the wide range. We're not limited to just this or just that. We are here as broad health practitioners. So this is their phrasing. How do we start to build a consumer bridge between what the consumer is looking for and what we are, what we do, what we can already do? Okay, so building a consumer bridge. This is very much about what does the customer want, what does the customer need, and how do we phrase what we are in their words. What do users want? Self-care. They want to build good habits. They want to understand the issues. They want pain relief. Osteopaths provide all of this. Releasing tension, realigning tissues, building general fitness, whole person approach, and so on. So that's what we are, that's what we do. How do we match that with what the consumers want? Their suggestion so far is, and I think it's quite a key phrase, it's the personalized care plan. Because, I've now visited probably 7 or 8 osteopaths in the last 7 years since I've joined the Institute. And that is exactly what I get. I don't know, how's it sound to you? Personalized, customized, it's all about building that person's care. And the whole plan bit means that they end up understanding what's happening to them, where they're going with it, and what the results are. Does that work? Okay. If any concerns are, write me, call me, yell at me. But that's kind of the beginning of the platform that will drive future campaigns if we can actually test it and it begins to work. But to me, it kind of rings true. It did a usual thing which most consultants do. The Boston Consulting Group do maps of providers and competitors. So if the vertical scale is medical at the top, lifestyle services or treatments at the bottom, and left and right, the horizontal axis is self-serve versus hands-on. They're kind of suggesting that physiotherapy is top left, it's very medical, it's mainly self-serve, particularly in NHS. You don't actually get very, while you go to somebody, actually you're doing most of the work yourself. It's interesting that what they're suggesting is that osteopathy is, at the moment, positioned as north of the midline for medical lifestyle, probably north of chiropractic on that basis, and north things like the massage. But they're suggesting that what's coming out as a sort of greeny area is the extension that we might be trying to go through. It's trying to own that space that's kind of reasonably empty around medical all the way through to lifestyle. So it's claiming a bigger area of that map than we currently have. And by doing that, we'll start to build a broader appeal and we'll start to succeed at switching those 10 to 20 million extra customers, extra clients that we're looking for. Yeah? So that's just a way of envisaging what we may be trying to do. Through their analysis, they're also suggesting that there are probably 3 key audiences that we should be targeting, certainly from the beginning of the campaigns that we do. These are the young professional and stressed, 20s through 40s, the healthy living, 30s, 40s, typically with kids, and the aging milestones, 50s and 60s. Interesting enough that we pointed out that an awful lot of osteopaths also work with service help, active workers, so, as a theme, actively retired as a theme. What they pointed out to us is that it's not that we are ignoring them, but they're already coming to you. They already know to come to you, and therefore, if we're going to try and make people switch, let's make the people who aren't using you switch. So that's why the recommended focus is on young professional and stressed, healthy living, and aging milestones as 3 core and slightly different propositions. Does that make sense? Is that understandable? Okay. This is just a chart illustrating that there are lots of online brands around health currently. These are all apps or brands or whatever it is that you can have on your iPhone, Google device, or whatever. So the idea of health is actually being further enhanced, further supported, further driven by the existence of these apps and the easy availability of tracking, of monitoring, and so on. The problem is that while consumers have never had so much tracking and data and descriptors and help before, no one's actually helping them understand what any of it means. So they get, as usual, it's information overload. There's a huge amount of stuff coming at you from, I've got at least 6 health apps on my iPhone. There's a whole lot of data coming at you, but no information. And that's what, again, another way that we can actually help the consumer. We can provide empathetic, hands-on treatment and advice that is unique. We can help to interpret all that data for them and make it mean something. So the tone of the brand proposition, not campaign yet, but brand proposition, they are suggesting is a combination of two key statements, or 2 key positionings. One is caregiver, not surprising. Primary tone is the caregiver. Osteopaths is someone who takes the time to get to know your individual needs. They provide personalized care plans, understand what you need to achieve as an individual. It's drug-free and wholesome. It provides reassurance, safety, and trust. But the other side is a secondary theme, secondary tone, is sage. Osteopaths have a deep knowledge of anatomy and physiology, educated on the musculoskeletal system. They work like detectives to trace back the symptoms to find likely causes. Again, this provides a sense of reassurance, safety, and trust. Do you like that? Does it ring true? Everyone's saying yes. It's really worrying. So, okay. The more to come is basically that they will now start to take this and work more on it. This piece of work is being supported and underpinned by a steering group, and on that steering group are all the stakeholders that we work with in osteopathy. We have got the colleges, we've got NCOR, we've got GEOSC, we've got representatives from regional societies. We intend to use the steering group to actually help to refine, to steer, to nudge as it goes through. We also plan to, and by the way, how many of you came to the road shows this year, the 5 that we did? Okay, a few of you. We're going to do more, because actually we ended up at the end of the 5 road shows having nearly 300 osteopaths come and sit in and discuss with us visions of the future and plans about the future. So we're going to do them again next year. And I think early next year, spring next year, which is when we do the road shows, we will have a much better idea as to what the brand proposition is in more precise terms. And we'll even be able to start to share some of the draft creatives. Again, this is not the sort of thing that typically that we will do to a client, and you are all, in this case, clients. But I think it's entirely sensible. Why? It's because when we have this brand proposition and we have this campaign, we will have some great arguments, a great statement, we have great content which will help each and every one of you. We will support it, but we don't have the millions and millions of pounds required to buy the media, to do the campaigns as the IO. We'd love to, but we don't. And I think I've said before in previous discussions about Brand Osteopath, when the American Osteopathic Association did it, they spent $500,000 on the research. We spent $30,000, and they're spending $3 million per state per year establishing a brand for DO in the United States. We don't got that resource, so we have to, we want to, we need to work with you. Because if you guys use this because you think it's going to work for you, then we will all get bigger and more thriving and better growing. So that's really all I have to say on this. So I've taken you through a lot of small slides with a lot of words on them. I hope it's made sense. Has it made sense? If you think it's going to work for you, if you think it's going to work for all of us, then we are succeeding. And that's we need to get there. But the opportunity is huge. It's another tens of millions of additional patients. We just now need to get there. Thank you.